Right.
Okay. Well, I'll start with my name, Ken Triguero, and I'm with People's Self-Help Housing. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for taking time to hear what's going on with us and others. And wanted to give you, since you're a captive audience here, a real overview of what's going on with the whole county in terms of affordable housing. Not only just with us, but starting with us, wanted to also give you a little bit of history. I don't know, has anybody heard of us before? Okay, so that's good. Got some name recognition going on. And you might be interested to hear more about how we actually got started. So why don't you go ahead, if you could move it to the next slide. And really the first thing to know is,
Maybe it just be on the side of everything.
Yes,
There?
yeah, I don't know how to,
No, it's not. moving.
maybe an arrow.
yes, hold on. Okay.
Yes,
Perfect.
that is.
Right on. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to highlight our mission because we are a nonprofit affordable housing developer, a 501c3, a charitable organization. And so we are mission oriented. And so our mission is to build affordable homes with site-based services that offer to change lives and strengthen communities on the Central Coast. So we're here in San Luis Obispo, but we work in a couple different places. I'll shoot a map up there in a minute. But we started right here in San Luis Obispo in 1970. Just a few local volunteers started by getting together. There's a pastor at a church here, the United Methodist Church. This was his first parish here when he was in his 20s or something. And there was a community organizer that he got to know, and there was another person from the church. She was on a committee to do something good for the community, and then a local realtor. They got together and wanted to do something. They were seeing what was happening here in the city. There was folks that couldn't find affordable or decent housing, so they wanted to do something about that. So they asked themselves, what could we do? Just that's how it all started. And so they found out eventually about this mutual self-help housing program, which was part of a federal government program. That's why you see self-help in our name. It really started because they initially went to the federal government and asked about this program, and that's how they got started. Well, they went to the church though and borrowed like a couple $1,000 to like get going. And fortunately, the church took a chance on them, and then they accessed through the Farmers Administration Agency. Now that's called U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's how this thing first started. And there was this program by which the government grants a little money for a group to start a project. And so with that initial seed money and that grant from the federal government, they were able to go out, buy a piece of property in the county here and build a house. So they built one house. It all started with one house. And these initial houses that we were working on were for home ownership. And it really developed into a program, kind of like what Habitat for Humanity does, but it's just on a little bit larger scale usually, after they got going. We buy a piece of property under this home ownership program, and then we will get it approved for something, through the city or the county, wherever we're at, whoever's in charge of the approval process. And then we do some infrastructure, like we'll get the lot ready. We usually actually work in properties that have at least 10 or 12 lots all together at a time. Sometimes we do a little bit bigger, but that's kind of how this works. Once it's approved and we put in like streets, driveways, that kind of thing, we get those lots ready. Then we invite families who qualify by way of income. They can't make more than 80% of the area median income for their household to qualify for this, but they're gonna build their own homes mostly. They do what they can. They don't have to know, how to build a home. We have a licensed contractor that supervises that and helps and does some training. But they are required to put in 40 hours every single week on their own home. And that's kind of how this all started. It's really a great program. Today we have, a whole bunch of employees. I'll show you a picture in a minute. And we've done about 1,200 of those homes, but we also started figuring out how to do some other things. You want to go ahead and move that around there? And there they are. They're all there, but there's 250 employees. I just started saying these single family homes, and I'll talk program that we've done are spread around really 4 counties now. And we started doing apartments too, because we realized through the years we could do a lot more affordable housing. You know, homeownership isn't for everybody, obviously. And we could do a lot more for our communities if we also do apartments. So we've got a couple thousand units, 60 different sites there. Do you want to keep flipping through a little bit there? So here's the map, and you can see we're here in the county of San Luis Obispo. We've done all kinds of things around the county. And we've been working, there's a couple you can't see, but we're in Monterey County a little bit too. And we work a lot in Santa Barbara County. We're doing a lot more now in Ventura County. But again, all of this kind of started here. We're listening to the communities, understanding what is the need, and surrounding communities have been calling us over the years to do more. So that's where you could go ahead, where we have gone. In general, who we serve are families, lower income families, and seniors and veterans, including those who have experienced homelessness, farm workers. It depends on where we're at and what the community says the priority need is in terms of who we're trying to serve. We generally, though, the income level is around 30% up to 80% area median income. That's just the range. It's never higher than 80% area median income, but we go a lot lower. You know, sometimes people have no income, right? If you're homeless, a lot of times that is what happens there. So that's kind of a range. You could go ahead, please. So here in the county, we've got almost just under 1,000 apartments. And then within those apartments, here's kind of some demographics of who we're housing. It's mostly working families and individuals. That's about 1,200 or so. Seniors over 60, almost 400 here that are low income seniors on fixed incomes. Like I say, formerly experiencing homelessness, 386 at the time that I wrote this down. Veterans, almost 100 so far just in the county that we're serving. And those that have disabilities, that could be any kind of, you know, a variety of different kind of disabilities. So I didn't break it down. You can see it's a little higher percentage for females who are in our amongst our residents. And these days, the median household size is about 2 for the county. This is something that has gone down over the years. We've seen that the household sizes are getting smaller for those who we're serving. I think a lot of that has to do with economics. You know, the folks can't afford to have the housing, let alone to have a lot of kids, right? So we're just seeing this trend in our portfolio. So that's of interest. And then in terms of what that income looks like, our average is somewhere between 30 and 55,000 for the household. But like I say, that's not a minimum or a maximum by any means. That's just what we happen to have going on. So you can see an affordable rent for that income group here is somewhere between 750 to 1375, just to give you a sense. But again, our job is to make the rent, or if it's a mortgage, if it's a home for home ownership, that housing cost for the household shouldn't be more than about 30% of your, I mean, that's the definition that we're using for affordable. It's not that it affordable in terms of the cost, it costs a lot of money still. We figured out, you know, how to deal with that, but ultimately, whatever the household earns, this much or this much, it needs to correspond to about 30%. That's the main point. What we do too is in terms of our kind of model, and Michelle's here from the Housing Authority, she'll tell you, like, there's different kinds of models, so that's interesting. In our case, a private nonprofit, what we're doing is new construction, or sometimes we're buying things that come to the market, like an apartment complex might come up for sale, and maybe there's a just, you know, a private person that owns it and they want to sell it. A lot of times that means whoever lives there may be displaced, because most of the time somebody who's buying something has to finance it, if they have to finance it and the value is pretty high, they're going to have to raise the rents, or there's gonna be a lot of pressure to raise the rents, right? So a lot of times what we're doing is if we hear about something that is really gonna put people at risk, we'll try to figure out if we can buy that. And with some specialized financing, keep the rents low. So we've done, several of those kind of things. So you can see we're doing rental and we talked about home ownership. We're also our own general contractor, so we can hopefully control our own costs a little bit better, and we do our own property management. It's this really full service, fully integrated model. We're trying to do everything. But in addition to just building housing, we're also providing services. Starting about 20 years ago, we understood how important supportive services are and or can be, and how important and providing opportunities, how great youth education programs are for our residents. So we started those two principal programs. And the supportive services, what that looks like for us, we've probably got about a dozen or so licensed clinical social workers and others professionally trained on staff. And hopefully, some of some of our folks don't know. But they have done such a great job in just meeting needs that are varied, right? You all understand there's everybody's different, households are different, and our staff has really become important and critical in assessing what's going on, trying to figure out, how can we come alongside our residents and help that situation out, stay with them, plug them into resources, including TMHA, and so many, there's so many of us around here. I think we have maybe 100 relationships with different agencies in the county. So that's really how we've, I think, been able to successfully bring stability to households, especially those who have, struggled with housing. Then we've got about 10 learning centers at some different properties, meaning sometimes when we'll build an apartment, we will have a pretty good sized community space, a common area. And when we do that, we build in like some classrooms, some computer lab areas. And then we have a whole program where we're gonna hire a teacher to be in there. Kids can come home from school where they live at the apartment complex, and a lot of times, parents are working, right? So this really came about because principally moms were telling us like, hey, this is great affordable housing, thanks. But we really need something for our kids, and of course, parents are so concerned with education of the kids. So we developed a program. We got about 400 students every year of our own residents. It's not exclusive to our residents. We serve, community kids too, if that happens to work out. But we see such great success with kids who we're able to, like I say, come alongside them and their parents and the teachers. Sometimes the parents are asking us, especially if there's a language barrier, we're helping, bridge that kind of thing. We're seeing test scores go up, reading and math levels go up. We're helping kids to get into college. We've got a whole bunch of first time ever going to college. We've got some PhDs candidates out there. And so it's really been a terrific program. So that's really important to us. And the last thing on that slide to mention, the thing we're doing is we're also a community development financial institution, or CDFI, just meaning that we're a nonprofit lender. And the thing we're lending on really is more about for homeowners. This is like mostly an internal program with our homeownership program. In order for the home to be affordable, we are sometimes providing some down payment assistance really to people who don't have enough savings, yeah, and the cost is too high between what the thing costs for them to buy and what their mortgage is that they can take on. So we provide some assistance to help people, first time owners, buyers, get into housing. You can go ahead. I already said, like, what does affordable mean? I really try to always make a point of you're affordable housing all over the place, and that means different things to many people, right? Like I say, it's still not cheap to build. We do good quality housing, and you really have to meet all the standards of the day, you know, the codes and the and even what design wise, what the jurisdictions are expecting and accepting. And so we spend a lot of money to build things, but the point has to be whoever's going to move in there, they've got to afford it based on their budget. So that's like a key definition for us to always try to share. So I thought I'd just point out, I like to try to help people understand, like, how did we get here in terms of having an affordable housing crisis? This kind of explains a lot for our county here. It's national, but like, I was talking to my dad a while back and I was saying, how much did you buy your house for here in the county? Back in 1974, he said, yeah, it was about 50,000. I said, well, how much did you make? I actually looked up. I don't remember if he told me he made this much, but I looked up the median was about 25,000. So that was his annual income for the household. And so you can see that's about the cost of that house back then was about 2 times his annual income. So this is last year, median price here in the county is 825,000 for a home. And the median income, if you take it for everybody in the county, was about 115. This year, it's actually about 900,000, right? It just keeps going up. Unfortunately, our incomes are not going up, right? So you can see the math. Now, a house costs 7 or actually probably 8 times annual income. That's really what's going on, and that's been a big driver. And you can see if you charted this out from 1974 or the 70s, it's just gone. This gap has just increased like that over the years. So there's no silver bullet out there for fixing this, but fortunately, a lot of us have figured out how to make things more affordable. Same thing on the rent. You know, this is rent here right now. It's between 26 and 3,000. I just looked it up this morning. Yeah, median is 2,800 for the county. So again, your income to be able to afford, if we do the math based on like a 30% of their income, you got to make a ton of money just to make it even on the rent side. So that's what's going on. That's why we're all talking about this. And if you want to go on,
Oh, someone has a
Wait,
question.
oh, I'm sorry, I did not pay attention here. Up there.
Michael,
yeah.
Hi, sorry, I wasn't sure. Are we okay to ask questions or do you want us to hold anything till the end?
I'm good if Renee's good. Yeah.
feel free. I was planning like it to be after, but feel free, you know, if you have a really big question, go ahead. It's important.
Just on the line that says we average about 850 new applications each quarter, is that 850 unique households, or does that also count like someone applies to 10 properties all at once and you're looking at that being 10 applications for one household?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that number was unduplicated. So that would mean those are individual applications, but not sort of counting the same person at 10 different properties, let's say. I think that's what you're asking. However, that was for our whole sort of portfolio. That's not just for the county. So I would just estimate for this county, it's probably about half of that. That's probably what we're seeing. So yeah, good question. I slipped over that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael. So we kind of started talking about the mutual self-help program where we're still doing this. I wish we could do more of it, but just so you know, we're still doing this. The families work together. So we take them when we've got a project, they come in groups of 10 to 12. Everybody starts on the same day and you do what you can. You dig ditches, you form foundations, you do the framing and that kind of thing. 40 hours every week means that sometimes families can get the percentage of the labor down on a typical construction cost can go down by about 70%. So it's pretty significant. That means a lot of that cost they don't have to pay for. That's what helps make it affordable for them. Yeah, you can keep moving there. And what we're doing in homeownership for this county, we've done about 800 of these homes here. Yeah, we've got a couple spots if you, yeah. Yeah. Now we've got another one coming up. It's too late to apply. Let me get that out of breakfast. Yeah, always get that. We've got 14 families just waiting thanks to the government for opening up, we can continue that. That was a little bit of a stall. We're processing their application, so because that goes through, again, the USDA. But we have 14 families that are getting ready to build their own homes in San Miguel. The next one we'll do in this county is going to be in Los Osos. Still plenty of time. If folks are interested in home ownership, they should go to our website and get on the interest list, and we'll keep communicating about the homeownership program opportunities. Apartments in San Luis County, we've done about 962, got about 30 different properties. They're spread all around. Again, you can find out where those are through our website. And we've got a whole bunch in our pipeline, meaning we're getting ready to build more all over the place. I'll talk a little. I think the next slide kind of breaks down where we're working next. Here in town, Beacon Studios is the old Motel 6. I don't know if everybody or anybody's familiar with that yet. So thanks to a state program called Home Key, we were able to acquire it, and we converted. It had about 80 something rooms over to just less, I think 79. Yeah, okay. 79 units of housing now. We made that conversion, but also we got some more funding to do even more work over there. So we're not ready to open that up. We're going to do some more upgrades. It needed a whole bunch of electrical improvements over there. So we're upgrading that, and plus the sewer system. You know, anything that's old has a lot of work as soon as you start opening up the walls. So we've got some more work to do. We're adding to a whole new community center, so we'll be able to deliver services there as well. So that'd be a great one. We're going to serve folks experiencing homelessness. About 30 units are set aside over there for transitional needs youth at risk of homelessness or experience. So that'll do a lot of good. The next thing this is in construction, Cleaver and Clark Commons in Grover Beach. We're actually working on that with the Housing Authority. We're doing that jointly, which is pretty cool. That's 53 units. If you're over in Grover and you're on Grand and 13th, right behind the Chevron station, that's us, that we're building something right there. So that's going to be great. We'll finish that at the end of this year. Then we're going to break ground in Atascadero on 42 units. That'll be for lower income families. We've got 10 units set aside for veterans experiencing homelessness at that one. And then further out, the things that are in the pipeline here in Atascadero, we've got two things that are coming. One's about 72 units, one's a little bit larger. That's going to take a little while longer to get going. We're doing the financing, but that's at the Atascadero State Hospital. If you're familiar with that property, they got a bunch of weeds out in the front. And so the state finally said, you know what, we don't need those weeds. Why don't you guys do some affordable housing? So they we're so glad they are ground leasing so on each side of the driveway that goes into the hospital there, they're gonna ground lease 2 acres to us on each side to build those apartments. And so that's gonna be terrific. $1 a year, pretty good deal for like 75 years, I think. So yeah, that's great that the state is really supporting affordable housing. And then I duplicated, darn, we don't have that many units because I put there's another project in Cambria that we've been working on for a long time. We're getting closer to completing the financing on that. That's about 33 units. And then in Templeton, we've got another 28 units. And here in San Luis, there's San Luis Ranch over by the Madonna shopping area. Yeah, that across the street there. Well, we'll be right next to the post office, actually. We'll do about 80, what are we saying here? About 80 something units there. So that's progressing. That'll be great. And then Dina Reserve is over in Napoma. I don't know if folks have followed that, but that's a larger development. And the developer over there is donating land actually to the Lucia Mar Unified School District. And the school district is leasing that to us to build 84 apartments. We're going to serve teachers and classified employees as much as they need, and then the rest will be available for lower income households. So that'll be the plan there. So that's kind of that. I was going to do a little bit of explanation on why this works, how it can work in terms of the financings, just so you know. We use this low-income housing tax credit program primarily, and it's a federal program whereby Congress every year is allocating these credits to all the states based on how many people live in the state. And it's not money, it's just an allocation of credits. And each state says, okay, we're gonna make these available to developers like HASLO and us and others to do these projects. We go to the state and we ask for an allocation. There's not enough of them to go around. That's why we can't just do everything we want to do. So we figured out how to compete for those credits. And it's kind of a piece of paper that says whoever has the credits, you're entitled to some tax relief on your tax return. That doesn't do us a lot of good. But there's banks and other investors out there who really like this thing for a number of reasons. And so we will essentially sell that piece of paper. In exchange, they're going to write a check to the property, and that money's going to stay there forever. In exchange, they're just getting some tax relief. It's not a loan. We don't have to pay them that money back. We don't have to pay interest. It's an IRS governed program. It means that we can keep the rents low. That's really the only way this all works. So even though the market is, way off track, this is one of the good things that's happening out there to make affordable housing work. So that's kind of what we got going, and we can take questions if you want to get into questions.
Yes, feel free. Those online, feel free to use the hand to ask questions. Anybody here would like to ask any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So, let's see. So Ron, my question is, I work for TMHA as a behavioral health navigator.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of kind of direct people and help people navigate the mental health deliveries. A lot of the people that come in, housing is a big issue for them.
Sure.
So I'm a little confused TMHA has a housing.
Yeah.
They have housing too, and we've had in services. I'm not a housing provider.
Right.
But they still, Tony, do you have, I'm looking for housing. So I'm a little confused, and maybe the HASLO person also. When we talk about 1/3 of the income, rent restricted, below market rents, housing choice vouchers,
Yeah.
and subsidized housing.
Right. Yeah.
So, first thing I ask, and again, I'm not a housing provider, what is your source of income? Some say, well, I get a disability check. Others, I don't have a source of income. But Tony, where can I get a voucher?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you go to Michelle for the voucher, but don't talk about that.
Right.
But yeah, good question. There's all this stuff that's out there, all this terminology. When we're talking about subsidized housing, that means the property actually has some kind of subsidy going directly to it usually.
Your properties.
We
could be-
usually do in different forms. Either it's rental assistance like you're talking about, it's based at the property though, or it's some other source. For somebody coming in to apply, we just need to know, like, how much are you making? That's the general question.
$1,000 a month.
Right. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, and each of our properties is all different too, because every single time we're getting different sources. This is, makes it even more complicated. In addition, we're probably gonna have 5, 6, maybe 7 different sources. So we've got this whole matrix, and we're gonna kind of figure out, but if your client tells us what they make, then we're gonna see if we have a unit that is available to match their income. That's really our job. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of vacancies. We got long wait lists, but the starting point is really to get on each individual property on the waiting list, which you could do for us. I'm going to hand out, like, how do you apply at people's, I'm going to hand that out to y'all. But you go on the website or you visit a property in person, or you go to our office across from the airport and get on the wait list. And then we're gonna figure out like if how many units we have available in that income category, and try to approximate or at least inform you or your client, like, here's how many people are on there. So you
Okay.
can kind of have an understanding. So hopefully, somebody doesn't have to figure out the subsidy available. We just need to know starting point, like how much is the household income? And then we try to figure out what to do with that. So hopefully that makes a little
Thanks,
bit
Keith.
sense. Yeah.
All
And
right,
then, yeah, the vouchers, that's Michelle's department. Although the HASLO is, they work countywide, and they have their own projects, but they also assist a lot of others like us on that voucher that you're talking about. The voucher that is of interest to us when we're developing something is one that, like I say, it's project. Not the one that, your client has. There's two versions, and I'll let Michelle explain.
Okay.
She's gonna be up here in a minute to talk more about that, so. Yeah, good, great question. Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned the low income housing tax credits. And I know the whole landscape for affordable housing developers is very Byzantine and very complicated, but my question was. Just with like all the changes we're seeing at the federal administration level, are those coming into threat at all? There's like a lot of slashing. There's a lot of serious stuff.
Yeah, it should be like with some jeopardy, right? Like everything else. I'm glad you asked that, because we're really hopeful, because not the one, but a bright spot of the one big beautiful bill that got passed was actually on a bipartisan basis. So I think there was a bill that went through that is attached to that, and it had 120 Republicans and Democrats that came together to improve the low income housing tax credit program. So we actually got something good. I mean, it's like we were kind of probably shocked, because we've been actually trying to get that program improved for quite a while. It's ironic that it went through this time. But again, it's a bipartisan support, maybe not the administration, but they didn't sort of get in the way. That improvement meant we've got now a 12 or 13% boost, additional credits that are out there available, so we can technically do more thanks to that provision. The question we have now, if we've got more credits available to sell, will the investors buy them? But because banks are really involved and like them, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's not out of the goodness of their heart, as it turns out. It's because, they're making profits, obviously, and they don't want to pay all the profit to the federal government. And they like the idea that they can take this tax credit on their return, and instead of writing the check to the federal government, they can create more jobs, or, do whatever the banks think they need to do. This provides them, some kind of a return, really, by way of the savings. But the other reason that they do it is because their regulators require them to make certain investments in the communities where they're taking deposits. They haven't always done that. And so years ago, there was this Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, maybe folks have heard of that. And so now banks need to make sure they're satisfying their regulators, that they're putting enough of what they're taking out, so to speak, of the community in terms of collecting deposits and putting it back in. This low income housing tax credit program qualifies as one of the investments for them to get credit with their regulators. So it's a win-win, really, because it also means that, again, this is not just a big chunk of money from the federal government that they're handing down. This is private that is coming into our community, staying here forever. So it's this public-private partnership. I think that's really honestly why it's doing so well and has bipartisan support, because sort of each side of the aisle gets something, objectives met. So it started in 1986 and has been supported ever since. So really good question. Yeah, I know. Oh, some good news. Thank you. Yeah, yes.
Did, Michael, you had a question?
Yes, thank you for your time because I didn't say that originally. For the handouts that you mentioned, is it possible to get electronic versions sent out after this symposium?
We'll get that sent to you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And then that was a really helpful breakdown of tax credits that I don't know if I've really gotten before. If it's not in the handouts that are going to go out, is there some sort of like simple breakdown for folks of exactly how tax credits work?
Yeah, I will get back to you so that that can be dispersed. We've got like some helpful videos that kind of explain that I think you'll find helpful. So yeah, I'm glad you asked. The handout I'm gonna leave, that's actually on that
Flash drive?
that flash drive too.
I
Yeah,
can share
I
that.
forgot to, yeah, sure. Why don't we do that? And
Okay.
there might be more questions, but we could just pop it up. I think it's called How to Apply at People's Hub.
Our screen shares.
It's okay, the slide was.
And let me just start handing this out in the room here. I'll just divide it in half, so I think I've got enough. If I don't, I've got some more back here.
This is
Sir.
the.
Over here.
Yeah, we just pass them.
I
Yeah.
know that you talked a little bit about the application process of applying to each property.
Yeah.
And then I know Cleveland Commons just finished their wait list. As someone who applies for like 20 of those properties a week for people, can you talk a little bit about the next few properties that are kind of coming down the pipeline that are going to be offering opportunities for wait list?
Yeah, this Beacon Studios, it used to be called Calle Joaquin because it's on Calle Joaquin. That would be sort of the next one. Of course, we're gonna be working with the,
That's gonna be a home key property.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's gonna
right,
be
right,
like
right,
an HMIS clarity.
yeah, that's what I was just gonna start sort
Yeah,
of,
I was thinking like what PDBs do you kind of have coming up?
oh no. That's not, no, yeah, other than Clean Park, I think we have some vouchers at a Tuscadero. So again, it's gonna take a while because we're just breaking ground on
Right.
Tuscadero.
I just didn't-
That'll be our next. local
That was
one
kind of your
here.
next one, you're starting to break ground on.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember if I'm skipping over everything, anything else coming up between that. I think that's it. Michelle's got some more properties she can talk.
Yeah, maybe I'll send you a list and you can distribute that of the ones we've got coming.
Yes.
up. We got a couple more coming up. One more,
And
Meadow Creek.
Bailico on Monterey is coming along nice.
that's next year, yes, and then Arroyo Terrace and Road
Yep, and then the one by AJ's for the other. Yes.
Oh, excuse me, Rich. I shared the file for the PDF file for this handout in the chat.
Yes.
So if you're in the chat, you can download it onto your computer.
And I have a little bit to add because
Yeah.
I recently moved and I moved into a people's self-help apartment. So
Like,
I can tell a little bit about how it was like to apply.
Yeah.
I was lucky in that there was an opening pretty quickly. So it was the process took like 2 months,
Okay.
maybe 2 to 3 months, and a lot of paperwork. Like more paperwork than
I hear
usual
you.
because it's a nonprofit. So there's a lot of paperwork, and so it was doing paperwork and then getting an email or a phone call saying we need more paperwork, we need an update on the paperwork, and that kind of stuff. Fortunately, I'm really good at paperwork. Like, I was told I was one of the best people she's ever dealt with.
Wow.
So if anybody needs any advice on how to go about this, go ahead and let me know because I know ways to do paperwork.
This is such an important point. And, Michelle and I were just talking about this because we hear this a lot. We don't want to do paperwork, honestly, but it's because these sources of finance
Exactly.
require it. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, like I was saying, we have maybe 5, 6, 7 different sources. They each have their own requirements. And we just think if we don't stay in compliance, we can't get any more funding for other projects. So it's like the kiss of death if we don't.
Yes. No.
So
it
that's
has to
the
be.
why.
Mhm.
But to your point, you all can really be helpful for helping others do paperwork.
Mhm.
That is such a big deal. And that's part of what, our supportive services is really about, is helping people just get through the tough paperwork. And it also takes time, like you say, because sometimes we have to go out and have things certified by third party, and we're reliant on, and there's rules that have to do with that. So you have to wait a certain amount of time before we, there's a lot going on there. We're continually trying to figure out like how to make that better for people. So I think feedback is
Yeah.
helpful too.
I know it's needed for all the financial and accountability processes. I can see it's very intimidating for other people. And again, if anybody wants any advice on how to go about that, go ahead and let me know. And also, I can tell, since I was living in a house to living in this property, it's been pretty interesting because there's a property manager on site who lives there. So there's more accountability. The maintenance person lives on site. I got a notice for some sort of additional services, like some sort of worker. I forget what services they were, but it's sort of a social worker kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that there was also change in the online rental process. And so there was a day that you could come in and there were refreshments and you could figure out how to do that. So there is, it's pretty interesting. And I have looked at the different places where there are those centers for children, and there are, it looks like there might be scholarships or not.
Yes. Yeah. So far, we've with all of our folks, kids who have gone to college have been debt free. I don't know how we're doing this, honestly, but we're able to figure out where we're helping them apply for scholarships, put in the direction, that kind of thing. That's a big deal for us because, what's the point of, getting these huge debts and so.
But yeah, I'll see that on the website and the newsletters of these kids and the program. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, Kimmie Scholars
Yes,
is our program name. Yeah. Thanks for covering that. And yeah, I would hope that as many as are interested could get signed up for our newsletter and get more information as we go along, because we like to communicate.
Yeah. And once we'll the email, the constant contact, and we'll have your email addresses, some of the different sources like this. And,
Yeah, and we're communicating with the community, but also, I don't know if you received yet, we have neighborhood news, if you're a resident, and that has some additional information resources.
Maybe. I think I probably need that.
Okay, we'll get you signed up. Yeah, that's good.
I will say, as someone who works with the leasing agents often,
Yeah.
you hire some of the kindest humans I have
That's so great
ever
to hear.
met. They meet my clients where they're at. When we get stuck with required paperwork, they problem solve it with us. They reach out to compliance. So I've been having exceptionally good luck placing people into people's properties because of Olivia and the rest of the leasing agents.
Yeah, I agree, but that's so great to have a confirmation. Thank you. Yeah.
It's been, I have 12 people at Tiburon, I have people at South Bay, we've got people on the list at Cleveland Commons.
Yeah.
And the day-to-day at the properties as well, and resident services, so the on-site, or sometimes some of the social workers cover multiple properties, but they've been invaluable.
That's great. Yeah, they reflect, our values of service, teamwork, accountability, integrity, respect. Those are I feel like we've got a really good team, but that's the confirmation. Other questions?
All right. Do we have any questions online?
Were there
Anybody
not
with questions?
handouts? I have some. Okay.
I need one.
Need one?
Nobody here in person will have questions.
What's never to help out paperwork?
Let's do that.
Yeah. Big deal. Okay.
Figure I'm willing.
Okay.
All right. Well, it sounds like that's it, and I'm almost out of time. But I want to cut anybody off. You want to ask anything else? Or?
Oh, you can talk about builders games if you have.
Yeah.
3 minutes. I volunteered this year and it was.
Yeah, that's been a fun thing. That's You know, for these services, honestly, that's one of the hardest things for us to raise money for. There's, you know, we talked about this program to build, there's money to build houses, there's not enough ever. But none of those sources of funding things can go to services pretty much. So we do fundraising and have a need because we want all the services to be free to our residents, of course. So one of the fun things, hopefully fun, that we've been doing annually is these builder games where, you know, once a year, come to our office, across from the airport, and teams volunteer, and there's been usually about 8 teams at a time. And what they do is they're going to show up that day and construct a little playhouse, like a kid playhouse, you know, for kids. But they're thinking about this ahead of time, months ahead, and they're all going to get the same kit, but everybody gets to customize theirs. And so they come up with these super creative houses, you know, playhouses. And we've had all kinds of really interesting, creative things. It's especially cool when the architects volunteer and they go all out on design.
It's what, I know, it's the competing companies compete with.
Yeah, and then they can read that, yeah, right, yeah. And we've had like a rooftop garden on one converted into like a monster truck. Yeah.
Fremont Theater.
Yes, that's right, yeah, some had themes, yeah. Did you see the chicken coop? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
With real chicken.
Right, yeah, that one's more. Then at the end of that event, you know, we auction off those and thankfully there's philanthropic folks who bid on those and we can, but leading up, I skipped the leading up to the building part. Each team has to kind of go through and mimic what the development process is like. So they have to start running to go get the building plans, and then there's a relay back, you know, amongst their team, and then they've got to go find the money. So we have to dig in the sand with a little play backhoe and find the cash, find the money, and then unbeknownst to them, there's a rain event, and so we throw confetti, and they got to slow down. It's kind of trying to help the community understand, like, there's a lot of challenges and it's like hard to do this stuff, and here's kind of why, but we have had some good success having fun too. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
All right.
Volunteering.
And last comment for me, really
Yeah.
quick, is that I do know somebody who did the home ownership.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
Back, a friend of my mom's back in like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting seeing all the hot houses being built at that time, and the amount of work that went into
Yeah,
it. And
yeah. It's so cool for all kinds of different reasons. Part of the thing I so appreciate about it is like, they're all at the same time, so you so know your neighbor. And when you finish a little faster on your house, you need to go help your neighbor because everybody needs to finish at the same time. Everybody gets the keys at the end on the same day. And you know, there's a wealth creation opportunity, hopefully, for folks too. So there's not a whole lot of restrictions on it. They can participate in the equity that builds up. These are mostly in rural-ish areas. They're nice houses. Hopefully, you're
yeah,
great.
they are.
3-bedroom, 2-bath, a garage on a, you know, good sized lot. What we have found, we just looked at this not too long ago, is like of the 1,200, I think 90% of the folks still live in their home, or they've given it to their kids and their kids live. So they haven't like just sold it and cashed out because so much pride of ownership goes in there. You like say you love that neighborhood, I think generally speaking, and it's just such a great program. Not
Yeah,
only
it's a
that,
great
but
program.
sometimes people go into construction because they learned a new trade, and you know, hopefully we increase their income. So,
All right, I think that's about it.
okay, all right.
All right, thank you.
Well, thanks a bunch. I'm gonna leave early because I've got
Yeah,
another
oh, yes,
thing.
you
If
had
that's
your-
okay. I don't want to be rude. I'd love to hear Michelle and see where these vouchers are that she's gonna talk about.
We'll have a recording for the meeting up for
Great.
everybody, and along with different links and certain like the PowerPoint presentation
Yeah,
and other stuff.
And this video that I have, I'm gonna, oh, thanks, sir. We appreciate you. We went through the slides. Yeah, we were clicking. You were like.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thanks again, everybody. It was really good.
Thanks,
to be in
Ken.
front of you.
Thank you.
Kimmie, would you like to go on? Yes, please.
Okay.
So, a ton of slides, so I'll send it out.
Oh,
Sure, you can.
would you like to trade me? Tea?
I just burn this and then.
We got it? I'll see you.
I'm not seeing it online.
Yeah.
On the dot.
Give me 1 second.
All right, there it is.
Thank you so much. Should I wait a few more seconds or? Oh, thank you. Good. I'm gonna hand out a few things I have, just some business cards in case you want to get in touch with me afterwards, and then some stickers. I always have too many stickers. So please take them off my hands if you'd like. I'm Kimmie I'm with SLO Yimby. We're neighbors advocating for more neighbors. Thank you, Renee and Tima, for having us here today. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's kind of fun. Just to go over who we are, SLO Yimby, we don't build housing unlike Civil Self-Help and HASLO. We're a group of advocates. We're all volunteers. None of us are paid. We are a nonprofit. Generally, we're pro-housing and pro-urbanism. And we're just one chapter, we're the local chapter of a nationwide movement. I guess they want to call it a movement. We have chapters in California and outside of California. I believe we started in San Francisco, but SLO County's chapter started back in 2018. So we've been around for a little while. What does Yimby stand for? It stands for Yes in My Backyard.
It's not,
Oh,
this, I'm not sharing.
oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's great. No, it's.
Oh, it's fine.
So yes, you might have heard of the acronym NIMBY, Not in My Backyard. We like to just define ourselves by what we're for and what we support rather than what we're against. And generally, we're a lot of young families, workers. We have some retirees and students as well amongst our ranks. When I say we're neighbors advocating for more neighbors, I mean that we like people. we like people and we like neighbors. We think everyone fundamentally deserves to live where they want and to have the choices of housing that our system currently doesn't really allow us.
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for getting that up for me.
Still not working on this.
Let's see.
You can just use it like that, where it's just scroll.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's working on it.
Try again. Is it good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's working. Now it's working.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's technical difficulties.
And then the last thing about us is that we believe the housing crisis is ultimately fixable. It's the result and the product of lots and lots of bad decisions over many generations. We think we have the choice to make things different, and be assured it's not like this everywhere. Maybe not inside California, but not everywhere. So how did I get involved with DMB? I'm 34 years old. I originally grew up in Orange County and I moved here about 8 years ago. SLO is home now, but I would say one of the greatest hurdles that I had when I was moving here was just finding a community, finding feeling socially embedded, I guess here is something I've heard from a lot of people. That's a struggle. But one of the things that drew me to SLO County Yimby was over the years, feeling that once I had finally found my people, they were suddenly leaving the county. They were getting priced out, they were getting evicted, their landlords were pushing up their rents by 30% year to year, things like that. And these people in my life were moving sometimes to the Bay where they could find better economic opportunities. Sometimes they would leave the state for good, and I don't think they're coming back. And so that's kind of how I got involved with SLO County Yimby, because that makes me mad. It makes me upset, and I think the county loses out on a lot of talent. It loses out on some great ideas and just people who are invested and want to stay here. So I decided to, since I'm lucky enough to have stable housing and a stable situation, to use my privilege to kind of speak loudly about this if I could. This is just a little exercise that we did at one of our meetups about, do you know someone who was priced out of this community? If your story is like mine, we're not super unique, but even if a loved one hasn't left your life because of housing, maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's someone who takes your order at the coffee shop, or a nurse who attends to you at the doctor's office. These are all people who I think deserve to live here. So with an audience like this, I'm never quite sure where people's starting points are on the issues. So I'm sorry if this is a little like I'm repeating stuff you've already heard. Some of it Ken already talked about, and probably the other presenters will talk about too. But we're in a community that looks like this now, which is great. I'm a millennial, so I'm constantly seeing like Wall Street Journal posts telling me how housing scarcity is my own fault. So just poking a little fun at that. But housing scarcity now is not just a Californian problem. We are exporting this problem everywhere in the US. And so Ken talked about that affordability threshold being 30%. This graphic is actually showing shares of households that spend 50% or more of their income. So an even more dire situation, if you can imagine how little cash that leaves you for other things that you need in your life to raise your family. Buying a home today is a much dicier deal than it was even a generation ago. I don't know how many avocado toasts I could avoid in order to get to these types of numbers. And just looking at SLO County in particular, I think these numbers are even a little outdated. They're from 2022. But what does this mean for the average person, average worker? Ken already went over some of this a little bit. So we're finding that you need to make at least $39 an hour in order to afford an average rent. I believe this is a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in our county. So $39 is, I don't know how much times the minimum wage right now, not to mention if you're someone on a fixed income. you're like a student, you're a senior who's retired, you're not making that much money. Maybe you're on disability. Not to mention, if you have the aspirations to actually purchase a home, good luck without some generational wealth in your family. That is a huge hurdle for so many of us. And like Ken said, these prices are going up, but our wages are kind of flatlining over the last 20 or so years, barely keeping up with inflation sometimes. So in terms of how do we get here, Yimbys see the problem coming to us in a couple different ways. Mainly, we banned the ability to build a lot of different types of housing. So in the city of SLO, for example, 90% of the land that is within our city is zoned only for single family homes. If you try to build a duplex, if you try to build a apartment on it, it's illegal technically. And we recognize that like a single family home is great for a lot of people. It's not great for every single person. I know plenty of people who don't have the desire to maintain a 3 or 4 bedroom home. They don't have kids. They're not in the life stage where they need one. And yet this is really where most of our financial markets and systems are incentivized to build. So you have like ridiculous numbers in terms of older housing stock that's here. The last piece of this is talking a bit about where we allow housing to be built. So a long time ago, when urban planners were coming up with ideas around zoning, it just means where are you allowed to build certain things in relation to each other. This used to mean you wanted to avoid building harmful industrial uses right next to a playground or right next to where your children were going to grow up. But it began to be taken to such extremes where, well, maybe we shouldn't have homes next to our schools. Maybe we shouldn't have homes next to where I get my nails done or next to my doctor's office, forcing everyone to be much further and further spread out from each other, forcing us to have expensive car payments and add that to another kind of factor into affordability. So just over time, we've seen our ability to build in our communities go down. So we're starting at roughly the 1940s. This is purely like supply. This happens to be the city of Los Angeles, but it's actually not that different from a lot of communities closer to us. If you imagine this were a different graph, maybe it was talking about cars instead of houses. If all of the car manufacturers in the country decided to suddenly stop producing anything, over time, how much do we think cars would cost? Like, Yimby doesn't think it's all just a supply and demand problem, but we think it's really a big share of it. And we're not unlike cities in California in this respect. Lastly, how did we get here? There's a lot of people that are responsible for why we're here now. And I'm just poking fun a little bit because I meet these people when advocating for housing quite often. In my opinion, again, they're not the whole problem, but they're part of it. NIMBYs tend to be people who say no to everything and they don't offer any alternative solutions at the end of the day. They're not trying to make good faith arguments for how we house people or how we get the homeless off the street. They're concerned about really protecting their own financial interests. The thing that I've found about people showing up to talk about housing, at least at the local jurisdictional level, is that those most impacted by poor housing policy are almost never the ones able to show up at City Hall. If you're working 2 jobs, if you're raising a kid, a 5 to 8 p.m. time window to talk about whether a new apartment down the street should go up is probably not your thing. Like, it's just not happening. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, very rarely the people that we see showing up to say what they think about whether they should be able to afford to live here. So we're just seeing people get shut out because they're not represented in these kind of forums. And then lastly, the thing about NIMBYs that I wanted to say is change is really hard, and humans evolve to react and have very swift reactions to changes in the physical environment. So I think we all need to recognize that about our communities having some bit of change and growth. I think what we find is that generally people who are opposed to housing and making bad faith housing arguments and to have a financial interest, they were lucky enough to win the lottery because of where they purchased their home a long time ago. And they benefit if the prices stay high. They benefit if their homes appreciate in value. I don't think I need to tell you why this all matters. We've all personally probably been affected by this in some way or another. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the choices that we have. We see it pretty simply. We can grow up, we can build, and we can subsidize housing and the people who need support the most. Or we can just continue to watch this spiral out of control for the next decades. So what is Yimby's approach to fixing this locally? Firstly, we support new homes. Actually, I'm going to show a couple examples that I think are HASLO projects, and Cleveland Commons is on here. I think that was mentioned during Ken's presentation. So we try to support projects at every scale. Again, recognizing that not everyone wants to live in a single family house. Not everyone wants to live in like a mid-rise apartment. There has to be a lot of provision for everything in between. And for the last 50 years, we just haven't provided that for people. So we do this by physically showing up to City Hall when projects are up for debate and up for approval. We will call our city council members, try to have conversations with them, see what they're willing to support. And then also we'll organize email campaigns for all the people that, like I said, can't make it to a meeting to show their support. The previous slide was mostly talking about like new builds, new apartments, new single family homes. I wanted to include this slide because we also have supported transitional housing in the past. And so I think this one on the left is Cabins for Change, which is down in Grover Beach. And the one on the right is the Welcome Home Village, which would be located here in SLO. I think they broke ground on it earlier this summer, but it should be completed next year. And that would be 50 units for people kind of in the transition, trying to find permanent housing, but they're not quite there yet, or they're not making quite enough money to maybe make it into a people's self-help program or a HASLO program. And that's 50 people that are not sleeping in the creek or sleeping on the beach or in their car. So we've supported these projects in the past as well. Oops. I won't talk about this one too much. Part of what we support is the changing the policies around like these broken incentives in the system. These include zoning, which I talked about a little bit, permitting, making these projects a little faster to get ground on, or if you're rehabilitating a project, making that easier as well. Funding affordable housing, I believe HASLO will probably have that covered in their presentation. And then also measures to support housing stability. So this is like renter protections, rent stability, which I think also SLO Tenants Union could probably tell us more about. And then lastly, reducing car dependency. I included this one just to say, I know we all drive our cars everywhere, and housing, like often an argument that we hear against it is that every house you put in the ground, you're creating more traffic on the road. So it becomes a really easy scapegoat for people to say, no, I would rather not have this in my community. Not saying everyone has to get rid of their cars, but like the more trips that you can take to the grocery store or to a family member's house or something, just to reduce your dependency a little bit, is very helpful. And that's made much more easy if we build homes closer to where people want to shop and work and hang out, basically. We also, come election time, we endorse candidates. Our focus is totally local, so we don't really pay attention to anything much higher than like the assemblyman, state senator level. The great news is that our local council members are much more pro-housing than they were 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I would say. I would say more than that. It was very common to have like a lot of NIMBYs on a city council whose interests were more aligned around maintaining the status quo for like a portion of their constituents. Now we have people at least paying lip service to the fact that we need more housing, and groups like ours are constantly bugging them to actually follow through on it. And lastly, we try to hang out with each other within our group to share ideas for how our communities could be better. It is hard work, and people can burn out easily. So this type of gathering is just like, it's important to me personally. I get a lot out of it, and I'm energized when I am able to meet with other people who share kind of these values. This last slide, I wanted to talk about telling our stories. So in the housing world and in housing policy, there's so much data flying around. There's so many acronyms. It can be complex, and data is important, but we find, at least in the last few years that I've been involved here, data doesn't change people's minds at all. It tends to be people's stories and personal experiences that really, when you're sitting down with a council member and you're trying to get them to see why a certain project might be beneficial, if you can show them these sorts of stories that I just grabbed from Facebook that are super common and that are going under the radar, it's more likely to change someone's opinions on how our community should look like. This slide on the right, I just wanted to point out because we actually a couple years ago polled our members about their own obstacles when it came to housing. So we asked them things like, have you ever lived in overcrowded housing or a substandard building, something that was really unsafe to live in? Maybe your landlord never got around to doing repairs. And then how many of us were worried about paying the rent or the mortgage? So unsurprisingly, it's a lot of us, right? Yep. If you're not worried about the mortgage, you are at yourself lucky, I guess. And my last few slides here, I just wanted to leave to talk about Yimby as a whole. I mentioned we have many other chapters across the country. So like, what what is all that about? Mainly, we reach out to the larger Yimby organization when we need tools for advocacy. So they provide a lot of trainings on how to speak to people about housing, how to make a public comment, how to apply for housing vouchers, things like that. So it's really, really nice for a volunteer like me personally to not have to reinvent the wheel every time, and to even when I was putting together this presentation, I was picking people's brains for ideas on similar presentations they had given in Orange County, for example, and talking to them about what worked and what they like to talk about. And it's also nice just to be connected with organizers from other places, because you start to hear the same types of stories that come up politically, the same types of challenges, and you get ideas for how you may be able to surmount them with, you know, the unique problems that we have in our own county. I wanted to have at least one slide talking about state and federal laws. So the Yimby mother organization does a lot of lobbying at the state level and is starting to do a little more at the federal level. So the government moves at the speed of a glacier, right? And it takes a lot of time for changes to get enacted. In the last 5 years, even 10 years, there have been a ton more policies from the state aimed at easing our burdens. But, you know, like I talk to people all the time that are like, I haven't seen the effects of any of that. So like, it's very slow moving, but the state has moved on a bunch of different aspects, such as like ADUs, or they're known as granny units. You're able to build one in any single family property now. Some renter protections, trying to increase housing near transit, where people are less likely to need a car for every single trip they have. And then the last one I included because it's one that some of our members are personally very excited about, allowing faith congregations to be able to build housing on their own property and support the community in that way. It's kind of fun. Lastly, the Yimby organization has a legal arm that their whole mission is basically to hold cities accountable to the plans they make and the things they say they're going to do regarding housing. It's really, it's shockingly common, I would say, for cities to break the law or try to break the law, at least skirt it in the spirit of it, to avoid providing housing and then to try to maintain the status quo for everyone who is comfortable and privileged enough to live there already. So our 7 cities and our county, our volunteers sometimes act as watchdogs for certain policies they put out. Sometimes we are the ones able to alert Big Yimby and say, hey, like, city of so-and-so is trying to write this policy. I'm not quite sure if it follows the legal mandates set by the state. And they are the ones that have the resources able to look into it and investigate that further. Sometimes it's the other way around, where Yimby Law will come to us and say, okay, did you know the county was up to this at this current moment? And sometimes we will have known about it, sometimes we won't. But none of us are experts, none of us are lawyers, so it is super helpful to have people with that expertise to be able to rely on. As far as I know, Yimby Law has never sued a city in SLO County yet. They've sent a bunch of cease and desist letters basically for cities or planning commissions that were about to make an illegal decision. And they've been successful in getting those decision-making bodies to change their decision or delay it, which to us is a win. but yeah, all just about holding people, especially our elected officials, accountable. And that's my whole presentation. Thank you for letting me speak. And sorry for the technical difficulties of listening. I guess I have like 5 minutes for questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
I guess this might be a silly question, or more like existential, but I mean, I understand why there's top-down pushback on what is obviously logically, you know, short-term and long-term better for us as a community and society and all of that. But I guess I don't fully understand or grasp why there seems to be this like, right, this like theme of like the evil, like, you know, the evil people who don't want things to get better. It's like, why? Like, I don't understand why it's such a, right, like a
Yeah, it's
challenging
like
challenge, like
antagonistic
challenging
a little
concept.
bit.
Yeah, like you keep
Yeah.
saying, like cities will try to like weave around
Yeah.
policy and try and do illegal things. I'm like, why are you? Yeah,
I will say,
the same with
just
scammers.
just me personally, I try to have a little bit of fun with it, so I might be exaggerating or playing a little bit of this up. Like, I don't think every policy discussion is totally like that. And I think actually in our county, I'm most clued into kind of what's going on at the city of SLO, because I live here. Like, local officials are much more receptive and much more responsive and able to have a discussion with you. I think sometimes what we see is just, even if they're responsive, again, government takes, it feels like years to just roll a stone down a driveway.
Right.
And so even if they like your ideas and support them, they want to spend 5 years studying it first. And then they want to write a report that takes them another 3 years. And then they are like, now we have everything we need to make a decision.
That's so interesting.
But until like, and I understand why, like, I can't waltz up to a council member and ask them to snap their fingers and change things overnight. But at least as advocates, like, we get to be the impatient ones, and we get to try to push people's buttons and see where, you know, different parts of the city machine, like, can like be pressured to act faster. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just would like to better like I guess like point out the actual mechanisms in the system that are broken, right? Like, yeah, it's just a world that I want to like dive into, because it feels really like not nefarious, as I say, nefarious, but just it feels unnecessarily challenging, right? Like, yeah, like, why is there this pushback of what obviously is going to be beneficial for our society, right? Just overall, in general, housing crisis over the world. Just
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably disagree on whether more housing is the answer and whether accommodating growth is the answer. I think a lot of people bring in like, oh, there's not enough water, or environmental concerns, crime and safety concerns and things like that. So I think sometimes you have to speak to those things first before everyone actually agrees, oh, this is like a beneficial step forward. Not everyone is starting from the same spot.
right, yeah, like the actual topography of the land.
I just have something to add. I live in Grover Beach, and there's some locals that are very involved with the community, but it's so hard for, say for me, I rent, and my rent is tripled pretty much. It doubled in the last 2 years. I paid $1,700 when I moved in 2018, 2017, and now I'm paying $2,800.
Wow.
And I can't afford it, and that's why I'm here. But that being said, we have all kinds of things in Grover Beach, like meetings and things where people can talk about water, talk about, you know, housing and different things, but they're pretty much pricing everybody out that has homes there. And the people that do have homes there are, you know, they're got given from they've received it from their parents, et cetera, et cetera. And so the home I'm in was built in 1941. And so many things need to be done to it. And I told the landlord, because he kept jacking up the rent, I said, you got a lot of things you gotta fix here. And I didn't really want to say anything because I didn't want him raising the rent, obviously, but there were some major things that needed to be fixed in there. And so I went through SLO Labs, which was a great source for me to go after my landlord and say, hey, look, and so that was just so in that situation. But what I find in politics, and I lived in the village of Royal Grande for about 25 years too, at a family house that my dad purchased. And then over the years, he had to take a reverse mortgage out before he passed away. So I got left with that. But that being said, I love my dad and it's all okay. But I've been reeling since then. But for these meetings, for people to be able to talk to the council people, to raise awareness or say, hey, look, what's going on with the water? Why is our bills going so high? And they have like maybe a group or town type thing. And nobody shows up because you know why? We're all working and we're all deadbeat tired after work.
Yeah.
And to be able to raise our hand or this email thing, if I'm getting this correctly, we can email you or we'll be included in that instead of, not being able to show up at the court or, to give our response to what's really going on, with individually. But I know on my street and just where I live, the whole area, it's just the rent has just skyrocketed and people are panicking. I mean, I live check to check and I used to make good money. I used to do very well. And now I'm on disability. I'm on, I work for Sprouts to help me with my disability because I'm not making enough money. And I have a pension with the state of California because I worked for them for a while. It's not enough. It's not enough. And I got docked because I made too much money working for Sprouts because my rent went up so high. I had to work more and it's killing me. It really is. And so my thing is, if I would love to be able to go down to the meetings and say, hey, why is our water rates going up so high? Is it because we don't have enough people paying property taxes to keep, and they raise the property taxes to help, finance water and the streets are horrible. And then they're building 5-story condos. And they're pricing everybody out down there. Like the restaurants have to leave. They have to go to a different area. They're just mowing through there, building up this housing. It's all, rentals or high expensive condominiums. And so I said something about it to, the proper people that who have a thing to sign to complain about this type of stuff. But I looked at the local people that used to be the mayor and she's like, please show up at these meetings. We have to have this feedback from everybody and everyone's like, yeah, I'd love to be able to do it. I mean, a Zoom or I don't know, something like an email
Yeah.
in a group situation like that to get everybody involved.
Yeah. So like I totally hear you. That's like
Yeah.
2 hours of your day that you don't have at all.
I mean, today I was like, I just on a whim because you talked about this at one of my meetings that you were going to have this today, and I just went right after work after 7 hours, which I'm beat because I start at 4 a.m. And then I came here and I just thank for doing this too and organizing this and letting me be involved. And then I'm just learning so much and I'm really appreciative. So I don't want to take up too much time, but but that's kind of like my situation. I went to Social Security yesterday and I sat down because I had a meeting at 1 and I didn't get seen till 3:30. And there was probably 25 people in there, homeless, just different meetings or different ages and just different stuff going on. It's so humbling to see that and see where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, it's tough out there. It's so tough. And it's why they just don't want people like, I've paid my taxes. I'm 65 in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much it's changed. And I moved here in 1980.
Yeah, about the emails thing, we do find it as like one of our more effective ways to reach.
And that's awesome.
The elected officials will often like write like a stock email and ask people like, if you can't tune in tonight, that's totally fine. At least take 10 seconds to send this to your council members. They do read them most of the time. You don't always get a reply. But we're often organizing things like that because we're also busy too. A lot of us like are raising kids and things like that. I saw Harry's hand up.
That's okay.
Okay, sorry.
Add a little
Can
bit.
something else, I also live in Roller Beach. I was born and raised here, so I've been here almost 50 years. And my rent is 70% of my income. I do have 3 jobs, one of them here at TMHA, as a housing case application. And so I think I've gotten to watch the evolution of what happened in this area, and I think that's why it's so vital for your organization, for tenant union that we'll hear from in a little bit. Because we do, thank you for saying, we do work 3 jobs and we can't be there at the city council meetings, and we can't have the voice that we need to have. You know, my partner and I are looking at leaving the area because we both were born here.
Right.
And the little bit that I can add is I did get a form, an action form, either from SLO Tenants Union or from you, and just like the little form letter kind of thing, and I hit it and did get responses from local Congress people, from local city people. So saying, yes, I see it, thank you. So that was cool. And when it comes to state representatives, if you do the standard like form, sometimes they do respond and just say, hey, I did see it. And oftentimes they'll have a form letter back that says, yes, I've done this initiative and this initiative and that kind of thing. So they do look at it.
I think I went over time. I'm so
Oh, it's
sorry.
okay. No, we can go a
If
little
there's
bit
any
over.
more questions, please come find me.
All right, cool.
Should I do this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
When you go next. I do not have a fancy PowerPoint, but I do have something you could put up there on this. You'll drive it. And while I'm doing that out, my name is Barry Price. Oh, excuse me. I got it. Getting excited here. Very excited to see you all and talk to you all. I'm representing the SLO Tenants Union. So the Renters Resource Guide, this one right there. Yeah, so we make that'd be great. And I'm gonna come around here because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the tenants union and about the rental situation in San Luis Obispo, the city of San Luis Obispo and the wider county, and then talk about some ways that you can protect yourselves as tenants, as renters, and so forth. So the tenants union was founded as an organization dedicated to ensuring safe, secure, and for everybody in San Luis Obispo County. And we aim to protect renters from unsafe and unhealthy living conditions, from rent gouging, from harassment by landlords, and eviction without cause. So one thing.
They're seeing it, I
I think
think.
it's.
Do these work up here? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the city, there's not a lot of really good data that people can draw on about what I call the rental landscape in San Luis Obispo County. We put some questions to the city of San Luis Obispo, and they, had to go to like Zillow and, other places and other sort of kind of general sources of information like that. There are census records and there are other sources of information. But the city did give us back some information, and what they told us was that there are about 24,000 rental units in the city of San Luis Obispo. We're talking about the city of San Luis Obispo now. 24,000 rental units, 62% of those households are renters. Almost 2/3 of the households in the city of SLO are renters, which is a pretty mind-boggling number. I think Grover Beach, if you looked into Grover, it would come close. I don't have the numbers for Grover, but that's also a very dense rental population in Grover Beach. Of those 62% of those renters, 55% are cost burdened. Ken was talking about that earlier. That means that 55% of the renters pay more than 30% of their household income for rent and utilities and related housing costs. More than half are cost burdened. 30% are severely cost burdened. That means that they pay more than 50% of their household income for housing. Like, can you put up a slide that showed that nationally, that you know there's a huge percentage of houses that are rent burdened. So our goal as a tenant union is to organize renters so that they can exert some collective power. And the only power that we have really as renters is our power together. You know, there's kind of two ways that power in any community are exerted. There's what I call power over, where somebody has power over you or over a situation, and then there's power with. And that is when we all work together collectively to serve our community's best interests. So that's what our role is in this whole landscape, is to help tenants, renters understand. Oh, here we go. That's perfect.
Yeah, sorry for the delay.
Yeah. If you, and we also, by the way, I have copies of all of those right here. I'll just put them right here. English on one side and there's Spanish on the other side. So that's that. So what kinds of protections do we have as renters? Well, it's pretty limited because most of the power is with, you know, the property owners, the owners of the house. And also, one thing I didn't put up there, I don't know if I have that on my list, is that a large percentage of these rental units are single family homes in San Luis Obispo. We don't have a lot of multi-unit housing in San Luis Obispo. There's maybe 40%, but about 60% of it is single family homes. So there is a state law called the Tenant Protection Act that was passed in 2019. And that Tenant Protection Act kind of has two parts. Oh, before I go on to that, I just want to say, because these data that we have had to be pulled from anecdotal sources, from a wide variety of sources. The city doesn't have good information of its own. One of the things that the city of San Luis Obispo is doing right now is examining the adoption of a rental registry. You might hear about this, you might read about it in the newspaper, or see some discussion about it. A rental registry is simply a database of all the rental units in the city and some basic information about them. Who owns them? You know, what's the rent? What's the size? How many bedrooms? A whole range of different kinds of information. But we're really encouraging the city of San Luis Obispo to adopt this rental registry in 2026. And Kimmie talked about electoral campaigns, and this is how our tenants union has operated to push the city in that direction. And we really feel like that kind of is a big win for us to get them to be talking about that now after years and years of not having that information. So, and it's your letters, whoever it was that said that you got, oh yeah, you said you got a letter from the tenant. I hope that was from us writing to the city council and talking to rental.
A letter that was either from SLO Yimby or from SLO Tenants Union,
Yeah.
possibly both. And it's just, and I got a response from local local city council or county council.
Great, great, yeah, because we need better information. So that we can, and not for information's sake, but once we have that information, then it becomes easier to push the powers that be to craft better policy.
And I just wanted to say, like, a lot of cities in California have rental registries already. Which, you know, it serves both tenants and property owners, just to know, like, what are the rents, how many evictions, like, all these things, like, are helpful.
Streamlined.
Thank you, Lisa, a member of our tenants team. There are others here in the audience, I won't out them, but we're everywhere, we have friends everywhere. So the Tenant Protection Act protects renters in two ways. There are two parts of the Tenant Protection Act. The first is that it has what they call just cause eviction protections, which I call no fault eviction protections, which says that if you're covered by the Tenant Protection Act, your landlord can't evict you without cause except under certain circumstances. Okay, if you give your landlord a cause to evict you, they can do it. If you fail to pay the rent, if you break your lease, if you conduct criminal activity in the home, those are all reasons why the landlord would have a cause to evict you. But if you're a good tenant, if you pay your rent on time, you take care of the property, you don't have wild parties and do all kinds of other stuff, then there are only certain circumstances under which a landlord can evict you. And that's what the Tenant Protection Act does. And those circumstances are if they're going to do a major remodel and it's the kind of construction that you can't live in the house for, then they can evict you. Also, if they're going to take the unit off the rental market and they're going to go out of the landlord business, they can evict you in that case. If that happens, however, you are entitled to relocation assistance up to 1 month's rent. You're also entitled to 60 days advance notice. They can't just tell you, you've got to leave next week, sorry, or even next month. They got to give you 60 days. They've got to give you a month's rent worth of rental assistance. So those are all things that are part of the eviction protections of the Tenant Protection Act. The other arm of the Tenant Protection Act is rent control. And people don't really realize it, but we actually have rent control in the state of California. Right. And the Tenant Protection Act caps rent increases at, it's a technical formula, it's 5% plus the change in the cost of living from year to year, or 10%, whichever is less. So in no cases can they raise the rent more than 10%. And the CPI change this year was about 3.5%. So the actual cap this year is 8.5%. So that's what the Tenant Protection Act is all about. The big problem is that the Tenant Protection Act was written in a way that it only covers a very narrow segment of the rental housing. In most cases, single family homes are excluded unless they're owned by a corporation, which more and more single family homes are owned by corporations. It's really important that you know who actually owns your home, not just who's the property manager. But in San Luis Obispo, they estimated, I had this number, only about more than 15,000 of the units in San Luis Obispo are exempted from the Tenant Protection Act. So only about a third of the rental housing in the city has those protections. The rest of us are SLO. So, there are, ways, there are some other protections that you do have. There are habitability standards and housing codes. Every person is entitled to live in safe, secure, structurally sound living conditions. And it's your landlord's responsibility. These are called habitability standards, and it's your landlord's responsibility to provide you with a habitable home. That means free of mold, free of pest infestations, free of, leaks and water damage. If you live upstairs and and you gotta go up the stairs and the stairs are falling apart, that's not a safe living condition. I've seen a lot of places where there's exposed wiring. There's, people living next to water heaters and things like that. None of those are safe. And it's the landlord's responsibility to ensure that you have a safe living environment. So how do you go about doing that? Because my part of this is to kind of talk about how we organize and protect ourselves as renters and stuff. So there are a few ways that you can make sure that you are taken care of and you receive all your rights as tenants. And it's important that everybody know that tenants do have rights, and that you can exercise those rights. So the first thing that I'm gonna suggest to you is that you read your lease or your rental agreement very carefully. Now, ideally, you want to do this before you move in. But if you're already in a place, it's not too late to read your lease, read your rental agreement, and make sure you understand it. And if these things are written, they're designed for you to not understand them the way they're written. So if you don't understand it, get help. It's totally okay to ask for help. At our tenants union, we have a tenant help desk. You can call us and leave us a message and somebody will respond and try to help you understand your lease and what the terms are. Because the lease terms tell you what your obligations are in order to live there, and also what the landlord's obligations are. So really, really important to read the lease and get help if you don't understand it, so you know what your obligations are. When you're moving in, take pictures of the condition of your unit when you move in. Document everything really, really well. Because then when you go to move out and you want to get your security deposit back, the landlord can't claim that you created some damage that you didn't create if you have pictures of it. Okay, if you can show that. Now, there's a new law that the state just passed that says that landlords are supposed to take these pictures before occupancy. When you do a walkthrough with your landlord, they're supposed to document everything. So you can get copies of those from your landlord, but take the pictures yourself, document everything, because you can't be charged for normal wear and tear, on the carpets, on the paint, on the other kinds of things like that. The landlord can't charge you money for that when you go to move out and take it out of your security deposit. But you have to have everything well documented. Anytime you have communications with your landlord, especially if it's communications regarding the circumstances of your tenancy, get it in writing. Okay, don't keep it informal. Get everything in writing. The landlord can't just send you a text saying, hey, you got to move out in 30 days because we're doing a remodel, you got to move out in 30 days. That's not legal. Okay, he can't call you up on the phone or leave you a voicemail or send you an email. You have to have it in writing. And get every other kind of communication that you have in writing and save all the texts and emails that they do send you. But, you know, get everything in writing as well. Couple of things. There's now, landlords are no longer allowed to charge a security deposit that is the first month's rent, the last month's rent, a security deposit, a pet deposit.
Right.
It's a furnished apartment, so there's a furnished apartment deposit, and there's a internet deposit and a wash, all these junk fees that they want to add on just to extract more money from you. But that's not legal anymore. In most cases, your landlord can only ask for the equivalent of 1 month's rent as a security deposit. There are certain circumstances, if it's a small landlord who only owns 2 units or something like that, they can ask 2 months' rent. But in most cases, 1 month's rent is all they can ask for as a security deposit. We talked about habitability standards, mold, mildew, fire hazards, leaking plumbing, you know, refrigerators that don't work, stoves that don't work. The landlord is required to provide all this stuff. They're required to provide you now with a working stove and refrigerator. Okay, they're required to provide you with safe accommodations. Don't be afraid to ask for repairs or improvements to meet fundamental basic habitability standards. The landlord cannot legally retaliate against you for asking for repairs. They can't evict you for asking for repairs. That's all illegal. So, you know, people are really worried, especially because of the market is so broken. And there are so few affordable places available. People say they don't want to move because they don't want to ask for repairs because they're afraid they're going to get kicked out or they won't get anywhere else. I had someone called us just the other day and told me this story about how this person was a single mother who had moved into an apartment with a young child 6 months ago and discovered it was all rat infested. There was vermin. She was finding mold behind the walls. It's a terrible place. And I told her that she could ask the landlord to make those repairs and make the place habitable. And she would say, I would rather live with that than risk losing this housing because I can't go, I have nowhere else to go. Okay. It's really sad. It's heartbreaking, but that's where we are now in the power dynamic between landlords and tenants. We're really trying to shift that power dynamic, but just know that the landlord can't legally evict you or retaliate against you for asking for fundamental repairs. And if you ask and you document it and you send them a letter that says, this is what we're asking for. And if you give them a reasonable amount of time to respond and they don't, you can make those repairs yourself and deduct it from your rent. And if they try to evict you because of that, that is a legal defense in court, in eviction court. That's a legal defense. You asked them, they didn't do it, and so you didn't deduct it. Let's see, what else can I tell you? So if you have mold problems in your apartment, if you have ant infestations in your apartment, termites, rats, you know, exposed wiring that looks like it's gonna spark out in any minute, you know. There's a really good chance, if you're living in multifamily housing, if you're living in an apartment complex, there's a really good chance your neighbors have the same problems that you do. It's really likely that the people above you or the people below you also have mold and ants and termites and pests and whatever it is. So one of the most effective things that you can do as renters to protect yourselves is to talk to your neighbors. You know, have a conversation with the people that live above you and below you. Because that's where our power comes from. It's from collective power. If all, you know, all 10 people in this little multi-unit have the same problem, and they go to the landlord and say, you gotta fix it, that's a lot more powerful than just one person going to the landlord. Say, oh, that's it. And the landlord, by the way, they can't tell you, fix it yourself on your dime. That's illegal. They can't tell you, if you don't like it, move out and find someplace else. That's illegal. They can't retaliate. Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt. Is it legal for them to reimburse you, right? Or
Well,
or like if you, I guess that's like on a basis level, right? It's
yeah,
they
I mean, you
ask
would,
for
if
that.
you were making repairs, if you had talked to the landlord, asked them, got it in writing, got it all documented, photographs, everything else, and they don't repair it, and you do, then you can deduct that amount from your rent.
Okay, right.
Okay, provide them with the receipts, you know, you know, justify the costs.
But that can't be their first, or they can't demand that, right? It has to be like an agreed.
No, they should take care of it themselves.
Yeah.
And if the costs really, you know, I mean, if we're talking about an expensive repair, that's gonna be more than a month's rent. That's another issue.
Right.
So that's a bigger issue. So if the costs are more than a month's rent.
Oh, last question. If
Yes.
it does displace, like if, you know, they need to do like a big repair or mold, right? Recovery and rip out stuff, and you have to, do they have to legally pay for your temporary stay?
If they evict you because they're doing those repairs, they have to give you a 1 month of rent.
Stay.
Yeah.
Or income, like.
You know, 1
check.
month equivalent of the rent that you.
Okay,
were
money,
paying.
yeah. They don't have to find the location for you, but yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, you might-
We are, and these are great questions. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, feel
And
free.
the Tenant Protection Act, even if you're covered by the Tenant Protection Act, you know, protections are pretty limited. We have great health and safety standards in California and in the city of SLO, but nobody enforces them. Okay, code enforcement will only come out if you call them. They don't do proactive enforcement, they only do complaint-based enforcement. But if you have a real problem and you've talked to your landlord and they're not doing anything about it, the first thing I would probably do is call code enforcement. In whatever municipality you live in, whether it's SLO or Grover Beach or out in the county, call code enforcement and ask them to come and do an inspection. Because then they will tell the landlord that they have to fix it.
Right, and like, yeah.
Yeah.
that's the very-
So basically, I went through this, what you're talking about. I had a local contractor come in and just tell the landlord, the wife. Now, knowing this too, the landlord is an attorney in Bakersfield. Okay, and he just retired just recently. And the point is that he thinks he knows all the laws. And he was it's been that way with him. I usually don't talk to him, I talk to his wife. So I went through this probably, about 2 years ago. I had, inside the door jambs were rotted, just the place was falling apart. And, I said, I think there's mold. I know there's mold in the bathroom. And so this contractor said to the landlord, all the things that needed to be fixed. I sent him pictures, I documented, I did everything. He said, well, we lost the pictures. So he went by this local contractor who has been in the community for over 25, 30 years, works at Diablo, is a little, anyways, he said, listen, he goes, I gave him the list, whatever's gonna get fixed, it'll be on this list or whatever. And then he's like telling me, you need to move all this stuff off your deck. We're gonna have to rebuild the deck. We're gonna have to do all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm disabled. I can't go up and downstairs, moving stuff around, appliances, stuff to make it to where it's, you know, you can do all your work. And how long is it gonna take? Well, it could take up to 8 months. He was gonna make a lifelong, you know, investment, just do that. So he in turn told the wife that. The wife was like, yeah, that's, you know, whatever. So that being said, it got to be, there were so many things that need to be repaired. There's so many things like termites. I said, there's termites. They're in my skylight. You can see the dead bodies of termites in there. And didn't get fixed. The vent doesn't work in the bathroom. So guess what? The mold is behind that wall that goes into my daughter's room. Didn't touch that. And then I had CertPro come out. And meanwhile, I'm talking to SLO because I can't afford to get an attorney. And I'm finding an attorney. So it's really hard. So I need a place to live. I can't just whip up, you know, $5,000 to move out somewhere. And my credit, everything is blown right now. So I'm like holding on to this place. So it's hard for me to get into that, well, you can just pay for it yourself thing. No, I can't. And so that being said, I have renter's insurance. I got it through Lemonade, which is great. It's a nice backup for me. Like if something happens, I'm covered in that sense, you know, $18,000. So, but there's things that are wrong with that. So electrical, it was built in 1941. There's been some rewiring. He's done some repairs, but I can't run certain appliances in my kitchen because it's so old, it pops the breakers.
You know, your story is not unusual.
No, I know it's not.
You are not alone.
But
I know it doesn't make it any
you
better.
know your resources though,
but-
you know what I'm saying? Like with SLO, they so helped me out, and it shut him up because he started making up stories and saying, "I'm going to evict you. You're not letting the contractor come in and do repairs."
Right.
I did,
Right.
but this guy's making a career out of this place, and all he did, and I'm going to say this nicely, he put lipstick on a pig. He painted the outside of the house, put these beautiful awnings, and the windows leak water, just everything. And then the door jambs, got fixed in the deck, but there's still, I don't know if there's mold. CertPro said they have to go into the wall, dig out 4 feet to see what's behind that wall, and he wouldn't pay for it. The landlord said no.
Well, you're fortunate that you have SLO helping you out, and one of the things that we're advocating for with the city of SLO is for them to provide access to counsel for renters, because that is a huge barrier to
Right,
people, because landlords, they all have lawyers,
right.
right? Or they are lawyers.
Especially their like.
Right. And,
Can't pick that one out.
90% of tenants don't have legal representation. So one of the things that the tenants union is working on is facilitating access to mediation services and to other legal.
The code enforcement is important too. And he said I'd have to get somebody from Grover Beach.
Yeah, if you
To
live in
call
Grover,
them.
call Grover Code Enforcement.
But here I am floating in here going, okay, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'd love to hear other stories, other tenant stories. Amaya.
Before you stop, when is your next meeting?
So the tenants union, thank you so much. Join the tenants union. You can follow us on Instagram, or you can join our you can join our email mailing list. You'll get regular updates from us. We don't spam you. We don't send a lot of stuff, but we send information about things that are going on with regards to housing in the community. So that's a great way to get information. We meet the second Sunday of every month. And we meet over here on Palm Street at the Galen Pride and Diversity Center is kind enough to let us use their meeting space on Sunday afternoon at 3:30, the second Sunday of the month. Everybody is welcome. We love to hear tenant stories, and we're very active now in our organizing campaigns for better tenant protections. The city to take the provisions of the Tenant Protection Act and expand them so that all rental units are covered. Not just this tiny little
Right.
slice.
So December 14th is right
Thank you.
next,
December
next meeting.
14th over at Gala, so please,
And that's at 3 o'clock,
3:30.
3:30.
3:30. Bring your friends, bring your neighbors. You know, we're a very organic organization. We're not a 501c3 nonprofit or anything like that. We're just a group of people coming together to advocate for our rights collectively. And we hope you'll join us. Any other questions?
Any questions online? No questions online. Anybody else have questions in here?
Thanks, Barry.
Oh, and yeah, those flyers are going around, so
Yes,
Yeah.
and these are gonna be from the front desk.
perfect, thank you.
And here's the rest of your flyers.
Thank you.
All right, we can stretch a little bit, or we can go ahead and you're next.
It's up to you, you have a stretch.
Oh, I can, I'm a little tense. We'll stand up.
There you go, we can all see it.
We can all stand.
You have any media?
No, I have no media, just kind of do it organically and see what people wanted to hear, because I wasn't sure what was already covered, and knowing I was going last. I'm from HASLO, the executive director there, my name is Michelle Pedigo. A lot of what we do is very similar to people's self-help housing in terms of the building, the affordable housing. We don't do the self-help part of it, but we do the affordable, the tax credit funding that he was talking about. So we have about 1,000 of those units. But I think what most people are interested in when I talk is the voucher program, because that is unique. And it is a very useful tool for those making under 30% of AMI. Like Ken mentioned, those tax credit properties will have some units at 30% of AMI, but there are no units below that. So you could qualify to move into a 30% unit, but you couldn't afford the rent, because the rent is going to be based on somebody who's making 30% of AMI. So the rent would be affordable to them. If you're making less than that, it's not. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program, we call Section 8, is a program that will pay 30%, you pay 30% of your income. So it matches your actual income, not an income that's assumed on that unit. And then the subsidy that comes from HUD that we administer will pay the rest of your rent for you. So a couple types of vouchers. There's the tenant-based vouchers, we'll call them. That's what you'll see. Sometimes we'll open the wait list. Right now it's closed, but that's what that is. Those are, you sign up for a voucher that goes with you. So you can take that voucher to any landlord in the county and get assistance paying the rent at standard housing, any housing in the county that qualifies. And the qualifications are just habitability and things like that. And then there's project-based vouchers. So those will be attached to a unit, like Ken was mentioning at some of their properties. So those will stay at the unit, but it works the same as far as you only pay 30% of your income for the rent. It just doesn't go with you if you go somewhere else. So the funding for those vouchers come from HUD. So we get caught up in this annual budget fight. And it makes it difficult for us to predict how much funding is going to be available in the next year for vouchers. When they shut down the government, we're uncertain about whether we're going to have funding. We luckily did this year have funding while it was shut down. But it makes it difficult for us to open the wait list at a set interval, because we never know when funding is coming, when funding is going to stop. So we really watch our numbers throughout the year, and we'll just open the wait list when it looks like we're going to have some vouchers. And it's unfortunate that we can't do it in a better, more predictable way, but systematic issues are what they are. So this year, the funding is looking really tight. The last couple years, they've just funded the vouchers at the same level, which is actually ends up to being a cut because rents go up and we're paying more towards subsidy. So if you give us the same amount of money, we can afford less vouchers with that same amount of money. So we're always advocating for increases in that voucher funding, which right now is kind of falling on deaf ears, but the budget actually so far it's turned out better than what we had thought. The president, I don't know if you remember, was recommending like a 50% cut, turning it into a state voucher program, which was really scary because that would be, you know, a huge upheaval in the system. But that didn't make it through the House and the Senate. They opposed the level funding, which I said is not enough, but better than a 50% cut. And they proposed keeping it as it is through a HUD funded program and not turning it into a state program. So in the upcoming year, we think kind of be the same thing, the level funding. So we're not sure if we'll be able to open our regular wait list this year, which is really unfortunate. We've been trying to open it every year. We still have names on the list from last year because the funding has been so tight. But what we will have is some project-based vouchers. So we talked about, we have a Royal Terrace in Rio Grande on the corner of Oak Park there. You'll see by AJ Spurs that will be opening up at the end of next year. And then a Monterey Senior, which is for people 55 plus, and that's at the corner of California and Monterey, right next to Frank's, the 5-story building. So those are project-based vouchers that you'll see on our website when we open up those wait lists. It's really important to get on those lists if you're somebody who needs the voucher to be able to pay the rent if you can't afford the tax credit rents or the market rents. So when you see those opening up, it's really important. We have people in our office that can help you if you call in, if you're having trouble making an application. There's people at TMHA and all the different agencies like HASLO and 5 cities can help get people on those lists when that opens up.
Centers, local careers will also use their computer, their bank's computer, will come in and use their computer.
Yes, yeah, it's an awesome resource. So we really encourage people this year to get on those project-based voucher wait lists because I'm not sure.
When will we be able to get on them?
So probably, I would say maybe like June, start looking at the website because we're planning to open those in December next year. So, and then we also have, you know, affordable units, like tax credit units that are on our website. You can apply to those at any time. So the caveat there is that it'll be, you have to be in that 30 to 60 or sometimes 80%.
Yeah, because I'm disabled, I only get 1,200 a month.
Right,
So
so
that's where I would.
Yes, so we try to announce to all of our agency partners when we're opening those, you get the notices, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, like, what's the best way for people to get on any type of notification, is to be attached to an agency?
Yeah, that's probably the best way. There's also on our website, you can sign up for the constant contact and then just checking our website regularly.
And anyone can sign up for the newsletter announcement.
Yes, yeah, and I wish there was a better, more predictable way to do it. And that's why we kind of don't really have that one page how to apply because it changes every week. But yeah, that's the best way to do it, is to get on the notifications for when those wait lists are opening and to get your name on those lists. Yes.
Yeah, I live at the Wyman and
Okay.
I have a housing voucher and I thought I had just a regular housing voucher, but my caseworker called me just last night and I came here with this guy, we're over at Sun Street. You know, we're working that thing. Hope you didn't mind working that. And so we have to go out together, so I was gonna come anyway. But I thought I don't really need to, and then she called me last night and told me that I have an emergency housing voucher, which I was never informed of.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know, I was homeless and I got it, and no one told me it was an emergency, so I thought I was set. So I found out that as of January 20, at the end of the year,
Yes.
I'm out on the street. So yeah, so I'm also very much interested in the chances of the senior housing. I'm 68.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So the story there, the emergency housing vouchers were part of the American Recovery Plan around COVID time. So the program was always designed to be limited term, but we thought it was gonna last through 2030. That's what we were told, is that we stopped leasing up in 2023. We have 7 years for the program to kind of wind down, phase out on its own. This year, it wasn't until I think March or April, HUD sent a notice to all of us that they're running out of funding. Which, how they didn't know until then is beyond me. But because rents were higher than they anticipated, they were spending the funding they had set aside to go through 2030, and it's only going through 2026. So what we're doing is we're calling everybody. We're preparing a more formal letter in everybody, but we didn't want anybody to miss a chance when these PVV waitlists are opening or these other housing opportunities are opening. We didn't want you'd have to wait to get that letter. So Esther started calling everybody to tell them the situation. So we are going to do more information will be coming, but we're going to do everything we can to get everybody somewhere. So we're going to work with 5 cities and HASLO and ECHO to kind of do like a PSSH ranking of everybody, their vulnerability, just, because some people, it may not be possible for them to move if they have certain disabilities. So those will be the people we'll prioritize to give a regular voucher to if one does become available. Some people might have an easier time moving, so they'll be the ones that get prioritized for a project that's done or somewhere else. But our plan right now is to find ways throughout the community to match everybody with something. At the same time, heavily advocating for HUD to give us more funding, because it's really not fair to putting us in this position or you in this position. So we're talking to all of the advocates and legislators about needing funding to last through 2030 like it was supposed to. But because of the political climate, I'm honestly not sure. So we're taking a conservative approach and not going to wait until the end of 2026 for them to tell us what they're going to do, and just trying to make sure that everybody has a plan now.
So I know there's no sure things in these matters, but
Yeah.
is there a good chance that I'll have housing before I have to leave my present location?
It's hard to say. If I'm not going to let anybody become homeless if I can help it. That's what I'm going to say. This weighs heavily on all of us in the organization.
This is coming from my caseworker, but she said Esther told her that she had like 150 people.
Yeah, we have 150 people.
Yeah.
Yes, that we're trying to find housing for. So it's difficult, but there are, we have opportunities for the project-based vouchers, so we're hoping that we can find a place for everybody.
I don't want to monopolize, but what is the status of the one on the senior housing in Monterey?
So that one should be finished by the end of next year. So part of what I did as soon as I got this notice from HUD was to put in our admin plan a priority for anybody who's at risk of homelessness because of lack of funding from EHVs. So if we can get you guys on all of these lists, you'll be at the top of these lists.
Okay, that's heartening.
Yes. So we're pulling out all the stops. I wish I could say guarantee.
No, I don't expect
But
that.
I know. Well, I wish
how
I
it
could.
works.
Hate it.
But yeah, it's good to know that there's hope.
Yes, yeah, we're doing,
I'm glad I have a year to do this. I have to get recertified for the year too.
yes, I have my own section 8, it's at the end of the month, the recertify. Yeah, we were trying really hard to get these letters out as soon as possible, but we also wanted to have good information, so we don't, especially over the holidays, we didn't want everybody to feel like, oh my God, what am I gonna do, and feel hopeless. So we wanted to have a plan that we could communicate to you, and that's what we're trying to do.
No, it's fine. My kids were just sprung it on me, which I was glad, because I wouldn't be here. Well, I would be, but
Yeah,
I really appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
okay, good. Yeah, because we've heard from other people in other jurisdictions that their housing authority just send them a letter saying, good luck, you're on your own. So we're not taking that approach. That's not who we are. So trying our best to, but the best thing to do is keep in contact with Esther, and we're all gonna try.
I left her a message
Yeah,
last night.
yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question on section 8, is it legal for landlords to refuse people in section 8?
It's not.
I'm assuming not, but there's seemingly no.
What was the question?
As if it's legal for landlords to refuse section 8.
Oh,
But it seems so common,
Yeah.
Just every time I've looked at a rental unit in the last 5 years, it's not that unusual to have a landlord say to me, we're not taking section 8 of this time.
Yeah.
But there's no consequences for that sort of like discriminatory.
Yeah, that's a great question, because
No.
especially what the funding that's been cut from HUD for staffing was all of the fair housing funding. That's who would handle those types of complaints. It's the fair housing department at HUD. I'd be interested if you were ever willing to tell me what landlords you were hearing that from.
I've
because
seen that, like, when I was looking like the past, like, some odd months, when, I'd look like on Craigslist and what have you. There'd be, writing big letters, no section 8, even though it's, there was a law like not too long ago that says you can't do that.
Yes. Okay.
But to,
I'll,
you know,
I'll look on Craigslist too, if you guys want to send me any intel as well. But yeah, the consequence for that is fair housing. And I'm not sure how much staff HUD has for that, but we can always, put our own pressure on people. But yeah, it is not legal. For section 8. Let's see. So I think I mentioned, if you want to apply for our other affordable properties, that's on our website. Our website will say when we're opening the wait lists.
See, what is the average wait list for now these days?
It varies quite a bit. I mean, there's some properties that have a relatively short wait list. If it's a place where people move out and on more frequently, some have really long. The longest wait lists are the section 8, because that is really, there's nothing else that fills that gap.
I guess I'm confused. So section 8 is different from the property?
Yes, yeah.
What's the distinction?
Yeah, so section 8 is a program that only housing authorities can administer, so that's why like People Self-Help doesn't have any of these.
I see.
So this is a separate program funded by HUD for this rental subsidy. So we're the only ones that have that funding, and so we manage a wait list for that voucher program. We'll pull people's names off of there, you'll get a voucher, and you can go to any landlord, and you can use them at the rent restricted properties too, but you can go anywhere. And then there's the housing that we build with the tax credit funding, what is reduced rents, but you're not guaranteed to be paying exactly 30% of your income. It's just the rent will be reduced based on somebody assumed to make like 50% of AMI or something like that. And so each of those properties are their own entity, and they'll each have their own wait list, just because of the way that.
And what's house keys? I get emails from
House keys, the entity that the city contracts with to manage their affordable. So the properties that are have to be sold to low income people, house keys will manage that application process. And I think the city might own some rentals too. I'm not sure, but yeah, they contract with the
because that's
city.
what I get.
Yeah.
And like it'll say for very low income.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So that's from the city itself
City
manages
itself.
those. Yeah. So,
you can provide like a little bit of history on HASLO, and
Yeah.
maybe what you're gonna do, and what you can plan a little bit in the future, future ideas.
Yeah, so HASLO started in 1968. Each jurisdiction will have a housing authority to manage their Section 8 program. Like Santa Barbara County has 2. I don't know, there's one in the county, one in the city. We only have us. We cover both the county and the city. So we were started as to manage the Section 8 program and public housing, and we don't have public housing anymore. We converted all of that to tax credit housing, similar to the other rent restricted units. And then we, over time, kind of get into more of the development. Just in the last like 10 years, we've been really active. We have over 1,000 units now of housing that we've developed that is rent restricted. Let's see. What's coming up, we have the 2 that I mentioned that are at the end of next year. And then we have, just like People's, like 400, 500 units that we have in the pipeline that we're just trying to build the funding for. And that takes a long time. That tax credit program that we're all using to build these units is really competitive. So we compete with people all across the state, all looking for the same funding. So in order to be competitive, you have to lower the amount of tax credits you're asking. So that means we have to get money from other people to fill in that gap. So that's why you'll see us all the time, the city and the county meetings asking for funding, because that makes us more competitive. So we have one project that maybe the second phase of Monterey that we think we might get awarded for. And that'll be non-senior units, but the second phase of that development on Monterey in California. So I can't really guarantee any of the other ones because the other ones are still competing for funding, but that one's the next one in the pipeline. But then after that, I mean, considering if we can keep getting funding, then we can keep getting, another 500 units built hopefully in the next few years. So, yeah.
Right, do we have any questions online or any additional questions here? Oh, Amy.
Question. So if you were on the wait list for one of the project-based vouchers complexes and you're on a fixed income, when your name comes up and you're called in, it's not necessarily going to work out because it's not necessarily going to be based off of your income. It may just be a fixed rate. Is that?
So there's sorry, if you're on a project-based voucher wait list, you're okay. Your income can be zero and you'll still be able to get the voucher because we'll pay 30% of your income. If you're talking about a wait list for like the rent restricted units at some of our tax credit properties, they will have a minimum income just so that you're able to pay the rent that unit is set at.
Got it. Okay. And then I had another question. This one comes from more of the lens of my work hat, but for families that are in reunification, I know that housing seems to be, we have court dates coming up and housing is the only obstacle to getting kiddos placed back with them. Are there, and I get mixed answers, are there vouchers set aside for emergency situations like that CWS has access to?
I'm not sure that you could call it like on an emergency basis, but there are family unification vouchers that DSS and Family Care Network work together on. But they have to be in like a case plan and there's case management. So I don't know that it could help if it's an emergency situation, but it is for families that where housing is a barrier to reunification.
Okay. Is that like the bringing families home?
No, they're actually called family unification vouchers, or FYI is the other one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just wondering. I was just always wanting to get. And so that would be something that the CWS social workers would be the ones to go to for that?
Yes.
To talk about? Okay. I'm putting that in the court plan. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. That was a great question. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just had a general question about acquiring housing. With all of this stuff in mind, sort of subsidized housing, low cost housing facilities and stuff. I've been homeless for 2 months and it's like starting to really affect my health and having a very difficult time finding a place for so many scams and fake postings, and it's just been extremely hard. If I have money and I'm able to at least cover the first couple months rent, but just I'm also trying to be mindful of stuff like this, but these are long-term options. And I'm also gonna start with case management here or something, but you have any suggestions about finding even just temporary lower cost housing? I'm also on SSDI and just kind of looking for like support maybe to find a place, or just an avenue. What would be looks like a realistic like place where I can just find a place to live.
Yeah.
Not homeless anymore.
I think connecting with caseworker is
for my program, we take our referrals from the homeless services agencies. TMHA also does have a homeless services component. United Cities Homeless Coalition is wonderful to work with if that's the area where you're currently staying. Echo in North County has programs, and then of course Fort Prado for San Luis Obispo.
Because some of our, like the housing that Ken was talking about, Beacon Studios, and we have one Maxine Lewis Grove that's opening up right now. Those come through the coordinated entry system. So if you get linked up with a caseworker, they can assess you and then put you into that system for a referral to these housing. So I would definitely recommend getting linked up with them. The housing on our website, you know, you can always apply to that, but
Yeah.
it won't come with that assistance and that caseworker kind of helping you navigate the system. So I think getting linked up with one of those agencies would be a really great first step.
How do you go about getting a caseworker?
So you just go for an intake, as far as I know, at one of these agencies, Five Cities Homeless Coalition or HASLO.
That's where you're.
Yeah, yeah,
FEMA also has a hot team for homeless outreach team.
yeah.
And Amy, you had an additional question or comment?
Still your hand is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask again. I forgot the name. I forgot what you called the voucher for the families with family reunification cases.
Family Reunification Program vouchers. So we call them FUP for short, FUP.
Oh.
There's a lot of acronyms and everything.
So FRC, Family Reunification Case Vouchers.
Family Reunification Program, FUP as in Paul.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, Michael, from Five Cities Homeless Coalition has a comment.
There you go. I think he's telling you how you can get
Yes.
navigation
It says
there.
here, I'll read it. Folks in Avila Beach, Napomo area can contact Five Cities Homeless Coalition at 805-574-1638 extension 2, or reach out via email at info@5chc.org for housing navigation of experience homelessness or housing instability.
And I'll just clarify, because I realize it gets read out loud, slightly confusing. Where we serve is from Avila Beach being the northernmost part of the region, Napomo being the southernmost, so anywhere from Avila through Napomo, so including River Beach, Arroyo Grande, Pismo, Shell Beach. If we're not the right agency to be serving you, we won't just say, sorry, we can't help you, goodbye. We will try and direct you to a provider who would be appropriate. So somebody called us from the streets of San Luis Obispo, for example, we would redirect you to 40 Prado, HASLO, because they have identical services. And then just the housing instability is a real broad brush. You know, primarily what our funding is able to serve is people who are at risk of homelessness, like they've been served a 3-day paraquat, a 30-day notice. If you don't qualify for housing navigation or case management, we'll still try and give you a lot of the same pointers that you've heard Michelle give, people stuff up housing. Sometimes we have updated, like if they update something on their website and these housing symposiums don't happen every couple months, we might have an updated list for you that's on the HASLO website. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to call, leave a voicemail on our inbox. If we don't pick up, the same person who handles the walk-in traffic also handles the main line. So we often have 5 people sitting in the lobby trying to get their attention at the same time that we have 2 people calling. So it can take us a bit to get back to folks. The info at email address is monitored by me as well as that same staff. So I'm in front of my computer more often than I'd like to be. I do see those emails and make sure they get responded to one way or the other. I see a question that I'm not sure if it's for me.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I work for Good Samaritan. I actually serve SLO and Santa Barbara counties. So if you are at the Santa Maria Emergency Shelter, or if you are at Prado, you can be referred to myself through Good Samaritan. And in order to qualify for housing navigation services, you have to meet the HUD definition of homelessness and have a disability or be at risk of institutionalization. So that's another resource that's out there as well.
Yeah, I mean to leave you off, sorry about
Good.
that. Yeah, no, we couldn't do this without the assistance of all these other agencies, because it's just so complicated. More complicated than you would think it needs to be, sure, but yeah. It helps staff
It's
them.
I like to see it as a patchwork quilt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Renee, thank you for organizing this. Good job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a passion project. It's taken probably over a year to get this all just off and on. It's a bit, it comes from the fact that when before a little around the time I was born, my mom was couch surfing pretty much, and was given a Section 8 voucher and was told we have a place right here. And so it was like the week before Christmas we got in, and I was like about less than a month old, maybe about a month old, and so well, housing has always been a little tricky around here. My mom was on welfare, and she was part of a group called Inspiring back in the 90s, which was to advocate for welfare, and because there were welfare cuts at the time. She was treasurer and vice president. The president was the person who got into the housing program for people self-help for the homeowners.
Jeanette?
No, her name is Karen. So I go that far back from my childhood, and but then I know all the craziness of Section 8 and going through the housing inspections and all the stuff like that, and renewing for certificates and what have you, and lived in the place that I was at from age 17 to just a few months ago. And my mom died 10 years ago. It was that first month, the first few days, week or so was really stressful because I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I was worrying that I would be homeless, and I got the call from you guys that I inherited the voucher. So I didn't have to worry about that. Otherwise, it would have taken me about 5 or 6 years to get through. I filed a little bit before she died, like a year or two before she died, and got the notice that went through, and I'm like, I already have my voucher, so I was able to give that to somebody else, so, and notify them. So and for me, I was in the place that I was at was the last tenants made a big mess, and of course I was 17, so it's been about 20 years, and they tried to do repairs. It was a 2-bedroom, and they're just doing the best that they could at the minimum amount. And so for Section 8, and so it was very hard. The guy was an old elderly guy who was pretty passionate about making sure that people had housing, and so I was just barely able to scrape by at like 70% of my income being rent. But last year he died. And so I was in debt for pretty much for trying to get each month, and managed to get into people self-help pretty quickly. So that's me. So I know a lot about you guys and what you guys are dealing with, and I'm a story as well, and been a little bit fortunate, like things have just fallen into my lap. And so and we have somebody else making a comment here. To get assistance from HASLO, go to HASLO.org and navigate to Get Help, Homelessness Services, and complete a referral form. And we have another comment from HASLO.
Yes, that was me that posted that. It's a little tricky to navigate, but if you fill out the referral form, we can assist you in getting a caseworker, getting you on the coordinated entry to get on the housing queue.
All right, fantastic, thank you. So
Sure.
it was great having everybody, and I appreciate everybody that stuck around because it's a really long meeting. So thank you. And
Thank you.